Imagine, I don't know if they got a long enough card. I may get to walking around and preaching and preaching about how I do that on a regular basis. Get to preaching about how good it is to be in Texas. You could live in California. That'd be a heavy load. It's a beautiful state, but they got a lot of problems on their hands over there, and it's really interesting. In tough economic times like we find ourselves in, it seems like there's never a lack of talking heads out there, Will, that are telling us how bad it is or how to fix what is going wrong, whether it's real or perceived. But sometimes I get the distinct impression that those with the loudest voices about how to fix what's going on have never run a business before. You can't kind of get that? And I'm pretty sure they never made a payroll. Never had to sign a check on the front, just on the back. And they never had to risk their capital to create a new venture out there. When it comes to economic issues, I believe that the academicians and the politicians, they do have a role in the process. They have something to offer to the discussion. I'll give them that. But I'd rather turn my ear to folks like you all, folks who actually have had to risk your capital, those of you who understand what it's like when a policy comes down from Washington or Austin, Texas, how it's impacting your business. And that's why I held a number of group meetings all across the state this last year with business leaders to find out what's going on. I still pick up the phone and call, small business owners and some not so small business owners and ask them, what's going on out there? What are you hearing? How are you being impacted? And it's really interesting from the standpoint of I got an email from one of my buddies who's in Iraq right now. He said it's really interesting the difference from what we see over here on the ground in Iraq and what's going on and what we hear and see on television in the news outlets. And the same was kind of true this last year as I was hearing what was going on or appearing to go on from a national business standpoint, and the woe is me and the sky is falling and everything's going to heck in a handbasket. And yet I'm talking to folks in Texas, and that wasn't exactly jiving with what the national talking heads were saying. And it's one of the reasons that I'm here today, to spend some time with you all and folks who actually do what government usually tries to take credit for, creating jobs, attracting investment, and generating wealth. And I say that, and I do firmly believe that government does have a role in this. They have essential responsibility in those areas, but it's a complementary role. It's not the lead role. I'm a firm believer that the role of government is to provide the most level playing field that you can. You got to keep taxes low. You've got to have a regulatory climate that is predictable and fair. You got to have a legal system that doesn't allow for frivolous lawsuits to drive you out of the state or out of the business that you're in. And you have to continue to focus on public school education and fund in an accountable way so that there's a skilled workforce, so that you know that you can have the men and women to fill the jobs that you're creating. And I believe government should invest in key areas where they're providing incentives can mean the difference between a business coming to this state and a business going somewhere else. And we compete every day with 49 other states and a bunch of foreign countries for that matter. And I think it's important for us to be able to have some tools to use so that we can be competitive, like the Enterprise Fund, like the Emerging Technology Fund that we've created. They, make sure that there's built-in accountability so that Texans know that money's being spent properly, that it's working like it should. Outside of those basic responsibilities, though, I believe government needs to stand back and get the heck out of the way and let those of you in the private sector do what you do, and that's create the jobs and the wealth. And on the whole, I'd say that approach has been pretty effective here in the state of Texas. And you go back and look at the last 5, 6 years, there is a reason. It didn't just happen by accident that Texas is the home to more Fortune 500 companies now than any other state. There is a reason we're the #1 exporting state in the nation. We're the reason that we lead the country in job creation. Here's an interesting little tidbit that I think, it may be a little tidbit, but it speaks volumes about what we've been doing in the state of Texas. From November of 2007 to November of 2008, that 1-year period of time, 70% of the jobs created in America were created in Texas. That is a state, we got 10% of the population, 10% of the population, but during that year period of time, 70% of the jobs that were created in the country, 221,000 jobs were created in that 1-year period of time. And that's people out there helping pay the bills and feeding their family. We were making a big difference. We had a 2.1 annual growth rate. Now, that may seem a little bit small when you look at what we've done over the last 4 or 5 years, but when you think about the U.S. growth rate was a -1.4%. Yeah, that's negative 1.4%. Our ability to continue to get the job done, we're doing it. But the fact of the matter is things are tightening up. I mean, you know what's happening out there. You see what's happening from the standpoint of your own business, the accounts receivable, what's happening there. Our economy is showing symptoms of the troubles that the whole country is being impacted by. You know, the comptroller projected a loss from now through September of about 111,000 jobs. Now that's, you know, effects of Hurricane Dolly, Hurricane Ike. It's the worst, most costly storm season that Texas ever faced in its history. We had 2 very impactful storms. So that had an impact on our economy as well. And the extended benefits that go out to those that have lost their jobs and from Hurricane Ike. How many of you from down around Galveston and that part of you all see it on a regular basis down there, and trying to get those folks back on their feet again. And the national economic challenges that we face. All of that collectively is put some real pressure on us. You know, we had a pretty good seawall built around Texas with our taxes and our regulations and our legal system and our job creation, what was going here. But finally those waves got big enough over the last 3 or 4 months that they're lapping over, and we're starting to take on a little water. That said, our unemployment rate is still a full point lower than the national average, and the comptroller predicts that those jobs will likely rebound in the 4th quarter. So my message is, listen, we have done a fabulous job over the last 4 or 5 years of putting Texas at a unique position. We're gonna have 6-9 months of some tough period of time, if you will, but we'll come back quicker, we'll come back faster if we continue to make the same decisions, put the same type of thoughtful policies in place that got us here. So I believe our economy, our infrastructure, our workforce, our culture will continue to exert this very strong magnetic pull for jobs. I think what's going on across the country is people are kind of looking around, they're going, seeing what's happening in other states, seeing how other states are going to be dealing with their budget deficits. We're one of only 6 states that finds itself still in the black of the 50 states. We're one of only 6 in the country. People are looking at how is, you know, I don't pick on California all the time, but they are an easy target. So, I mean, they're sitting over there today with a $42, $43 billion 1-year budget deficit. And they're talking about how are we going to deal with this. And you know what part of it's going to be? They're going to raise taxes on those of you that create jobs and wealth. They may raise them a lot. And there are people sitting out there going, okay, where are we going to relocate to? We can't handle this anymore. As beautiful as California is, and let me tell you, it's a beautiful state. And, I mean, just a fabulously beautiful state. But that doesn't pay the bills. And they're making decisions about where they're going to be. There are other states and places where that same pressure, Michigan, province, folks in Michigan are sitting up there going, how are we going to be able to survive? And they're sitting in boardrooms or they're sitting around coffee tables in small businesses saying, what are we going to do? And they're making the decision that now's the time to relocate. And let me tell you where they're looking to. They're coming to Texas. They're coming to Texas because we have created that type of environment here where they know they can come, they can risk their capital and get a good return on their investment. Just last week, USAA, big old Fortune 500 company that any of you that are military folks, you probably buy insurance from them. Their headquarters in San Antonio. They consolidated 2 offices and they're moving 1,000 people to San Antonio, Texas. That's the decisions. Caterpillar did the same thing.